Known by his supporters as King George, and former soccer star George Weah clearly believes he's destined to rule.
Something is about to happen on Tuesday. On Tuesday will be a historic day. A day that our neighbor Ghana will be celebrating the Boxing Day, which is important to them. Why? We will be going to the polls to elect George Weah.
Weah topped the first poll in October. His supporters say this is their chance.
This election, it is time for us to expel the political cartel in our country. People who feel that they are the only people that should be at the helm of power. It is now time that we show to them that without them, this country can still move forward.
We need to make our country right. And what way we can make our country right? Through our votes. So if we save ourselves for all those stretch of Christmas, I believe through that we can change our country for the betterment.
But Weah has been here before. In 2005, he lost despite widespread predictions of victory. And his arch rival is urging Weah to again prepare for defeat.
All of us, as we go to the polls, we should accept defeat. We should make this country peaceful. We should think about our people, what they have gone through. And that's what I can say to him.
Joseph Boakai is banking on his experience in government. He's been vice president for 12 years and promises to deliver basic services.
Looking at Joseph Boakai and George Weah, for George Weah, he got a crowd because of his star. He's a celebrity. And looking at Joseph Boakai, he is educated and he is competent. Also, he's been within the system. So I believe he is a real leader for Liberia for now, instead of George Weah. I like George Weah as my star or as a celebrity, but not for presidency.
What I expect to see is to see development, because he has promised that his first priority is road, second priority road, third priority road. So we have almost a very good climatic condition in the country with a good soil. If all the counties are interconnected by good road network, it will improve entrepreneurship, it will develop our GDP.
Some analysts say it's too close to call, that much depends on the turnout. Weah's party has even urged his supporters not to drink heavily on 25th December to improve their chances the morning after of making it to the polling stations. Soni, Methu, CGTN.
Now, it is worth pointing out that between these two men in their results in the first round of voting, there's about 10 percentage points of difference. Will that be the case again tomorrow? Let's find out. Robert Agile is live in the Monrovian capital, in the Liberian capital rather, Monrovia right now. So, Robert, walk us through the latest on preparations for this vote. Are there any last-minute logistical hitches to solve?
Well, very good evening, Rama, from Monrovia, Liberia's capital. Now, earlier this morning, we spoke to the Electoral Commission chairman, and he told us that they're as ready as they will ever be to conduct this particular poll. Now, electoral material, ballot papers, electoral staff have all been dispatched to the various stations across the entire country. There are about 5,400 polling stations scattered across this entire country. Now, tomorrow morning, very early in the morning, we expect them to begin to be deployed at the polling stations with all the electoral material itself. However, one of the challenges they are anticipating on election day is voters not finding the correct streams where they're supposed to vote. This was a huge problem during the October elections. However, they say that They've deployed extra staff at all the polling stations, so they expect the exercise to be relatively fast. At the moment, they say that they believe they've not overlooked any particular issues, and anything else that arises on election day, they should be able to handle it at that particular stage as the need arises. Rama?
Indeed. So Liberia's got about 2.1 million registered voters. But given that this runoff to begin with was delayed with court challenges, and it is taking place, let's be honest, around the festive season, what should we expect turnout to be?
Well, Rama, that's a really good point. That has been a major concern here over the last few days because of the Christmas celebrations and the date on which this election actually falls on, Boxing Day, which is an international holiday in many countries. We've had from politicians from both camps, that is George Weah and Joseph Boakai, the current vice president, urging their supporters to turn out for voting, not to overindulge during this festive period. It remains to be seen whether turnout will be as high as it was in October. Remember, there's political fatigue as well. This political exercise has been going on since October for the last 3 months. So people are tired already and just simply want to move on. However, they also understand that this is a very important exercise. However, there are doubts as to whether the turnout will be as high as October. It remains to be seen just exactly what we're likely to experience or witness tomorrow during polling day. At the end of the day, that is after voting, we should be able to have a good indication as to exactly how many people or what percentage actually turned out to vote. Rama?
Indeed. Let's focus on the current president, though, Ellen Johnson-Sirleaf, widely credited with holding the peace in Liberia. But what were her failures, especially while in government?
Well, Rama, Ellen Sirleaf Johnson is primarily considered as a transitional leader. She took over after that devastating civil war that crippled this country, really bringing it to its knees. And she managed to stabilize the situation, managed to stabilize the economy to begin experiencing some growth. They've had some challenges along the way, including the Ebola virus, which devastated the health sector in this country and had a huge impact on the economy. One of the biggest challenges or problems or things that she's been blamed on is corruption. There's been rampant corruption within her administration during her tenure, and that is one of the things that everybody points out to. The next leader has a huge task in trying to reduce the level of corruption or get rid of it. It remains to be seen how that will be done. Both candidates, Joseph Boakai and George Weah, are saying that that will be one of the first issues that they will tackle, because it has affected the economy here in a major way and affected the livelihoods of the people in this country. Rama?
Indeed. Following up on that, though, as the outgoing president's vice president for the better part of a decade, really, what's Joseph Boakai's defense against charges that he, as part of that government, did too little to solve the problems of corruption and poverty while he was in office?
Well, if you ask him, he will tell you that he was serving under Sirleaf Johnson and he takes orders from her. Now, what's interesting here, despite the rampant corruption which has affected members of the president's family, members of her administration, Joseph Boakai has largely escaped this. There have been no particular corruption issues that have been leveled against him. So he's largely escaped this somehow. And he is running on that. That is one of the things that he kept saying. Look, I have not been accused of any corruption. Yes, the government, there have been allegations of corruption within the government, but individually, it has not really tainted my name. So he's largely escaped it. Whether that will work on voting day, we will see when the results are out. Rama?
Indeed. One last question for you, Robert. Following up on that, corruption, endemic poverty, these are the key concerns in Liberia today. How do these two candidates propose to deal with these problems?
Well, Rama, that's a really good question, because what's interesting, if you look at the two candidates' policies very closely that they say they will implement once they come into government, they're very, very similar. You look at, they both talk about education, which is a huge problem here, strengthening the education sector, pumping more money in. No one's really telling us where that money is going to come from. One would presume that they will depend somewhat on their international partners. They talk about the economy as well, rejuvenating the economy. When it comes to the economy, they have different ideas on how to approach that, but largely at the end of the day, very much the same. So those are the two main things that they are fighting on. In terms of the economy, they say that one of the major things that they need to do immediately fast is to deal with that the snake in the room, that is corruption. And once that is dealt with, everything else will begin to fall into place. Having the right people in the right offices to deal with some of the issues that arise as well. So very, very similar policies, but at the end of the day, really, it does appear that this vote is already decided. Those who are already going to vote for George Weah, who has a huge support base amongst the youth, will vote for him. Those who will vote for Boakai had already made up their minds. So what they're really fighting for are the vote that, the swing vote, so to speak, that voted for other candidates. That's what they've been going around the country, trying to sell themselves, trying to sell their messages to see if this will work. Now, just very quickly to add on to that, Rama, polling stations open at 8 in the morning on Tuesday. We expect their doors to shut at about 6 p.m. and then vote counting to begin almost immediately. Now, the Electoral Commission chairman told me today that, yes, they do have a 2-week window in which to release the results as per the electoral law and the Constitution. However, because we're looking at just basically two candidates this time around, they believe that if everything goes right, and that is what he stressed on, if everything goes right during the process tomorrow, they expect the results to be out within 3 or 4 days, which would be a major, major coup for them. Rama?
Indeed. We'll leave it there for the time being. Robert Nagila there in Monrovia, essentially running point on our coverage of that country's presidential runoff.